Today we're braising lamb shanks with some North African flavours, and we'll take the opportunity to talk about the fond. We start by browning the meat. Not all shanks are created equal. The fore shank tends to have more connective tissues, giving you a richer, more lamby and gelatinous sauce. The back legs tends to be leaner, milder, and more tender. So it's a personal choice. And because of the uneven shape, we have been extremely generous with our high smoke point neutral oil. I want equal heat distribution because of two things. A, we want to cause the Maillard reaction, what's going to make the meat taste meaty and complex. B, we want caramelization, which would give it that nutty complexity. These two combined is what differentiate a piece of steak from boiled beef. And we do them in batches to not crowd the pan, to avoid them from steaming themselves. Once everything is beautifully golden, we take out the shanks. We skim off the excess. Of course, the one time I decided to talk about the fond, my pot turns into a non-stick. But regardless, however thin, this beautiful layer of golden and brown, what is it? It has proteins, sugars, and fats, primarily the result of the Maillard reaction we talked about earlier. Amino acid from the protein reacting to reducing sugar, producing a range of flavors and umami-rich compounds that add depth and savoriness, but in much more concentrated form. At higher heat, it also benefits from the caramelization we talked about earlier, giving you the nutty goodness. And at even higher heat, normally above 180 Celsius, it burns and it starts to produce bitterness. How far you want to take it is a personal choice. I usually like to take it quite far to benefit from the two things we talked about, and I don't mind a tiny bit of bitterness or smokiness. Now, how do we take advantage of this really thin layer of goodness? By introducing moisture. First, in the form of aromatic vegetables, we have some sliced onions. A typical onion is about 90% moisture, so I practically just added a bowl of liquid to our pot. And through heat, we first release the 90% liquid, and that would start deglassing, mopping up the beautiful flavors from the fond we just talked about. Then the heat would start to evaporate the water content, concentrating the flavors of the onion, in particular the sweetness. And to do that, we use gentle heat. The color you see here, that's not the onion browning, that's just the onion mopping up the very thin fond we have. Once the onion's a bit translucent, we add some sliced garlic for some savory depth and some caramelized sweetness. And we're doing it in this order because of the high natural sugar. Had we added the garlic at the same time, they'll start to burn before the onions had enough time to evaporate the 90% water. Now, one thing I've learned reading old tagine recipes is how early fresh coriander gets introduced to the cooking process. And when braised for a long time, the coriander, the stalks in particular, develop this distinct yet subtle, earthy and herbaceous note, which is why in a lot of Chinese soy sauce recipes, they add the coriander for braising. Now, the spices, some cumin for earthiness, coriander seeds, not because we use fresh coriander, but for the citrusy floral note. It's not an oyakodon moment. Cinnamon for sweetness and warmth, and we toast them before the introduction of liquid to really get the essential oils going. And reinforcing the sweetness we just talked about, some raisins, some dry apricots, both for some complex sweetness. And once cooked down, they will also add body to the stew. Now, before adding the lamb back, what we have here is another round of fond, mostly from the natural sugar of the aromatic vegetables. So the deglasseur has become the deglassee. Now, we add a tiny bit of water to mop up those flavors. So once you add the lamb, it's very hard to see and stir. This way you have way more control. Don't forget to season. Now shanks go back in. And like I said many times, stacking efficiency is paramount because we want to minimize the amount of water we have to add in order to minimize the dilution of flavors. Just enough to almost cover everything. Bring this back to a boil, lid on, and we let this simmer for about 3 hours. After about 3 hours, we're ready. Look at that. The smell, incredible. Carefully fish out our shanks. Most of the solids. And you reduce this down to the consistency you desire. Garnish with a fresh round of raisins, contrasting textures and colour. And that's braised lamb shanks done.